Welcome to the Two Whistles. I'm your host, Joe Chap. Today we're going to be talking about the Detroit Lions versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Tomorrow, 24 hours from now, I'm recording this video at 7:44 on a Wednesday night. Chiefs, Lions in Arrowhead, just like all the football gods intended the game of football to be, because we all know, if you're a Kansas City fan, you know. But if you're a Detroit Lions fan, Arrowhead's just an amazing stadium. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere. It's going to be great for the Detroit Lions to be up against, because you're going to go in no tougher stadium than Arrowhead. And it's going to be great to see. I know a lot of Lions fans are going to Arrowhead, so that's going to be very interesting. In this video, you're going to get a lot of good stuff. You're going to get players to watch, matchups, parlay of the day, parlay of the game, players to watch both on the Kansas City Chiefs, on the Detroit Lions, Goff, Mahomes stats that will really matter. I'll break them down. We have a lot to get through, so let's get to it. Let's get to the injury report first. Travis Kelce is questionable with a knee injury. Okay, so will he play? I don't know, but having 13 days before their next game, I would think it'd be the smart move to keep him out of this game. Just being realistic, because let's be honest, if you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you need Travis Kelce for more than one game. If he got hurt in week 1 and missed until week 8, that's not going to do the Kansas City Chiefs any good. Same with Emmanuel Mosley. Could Emmanuel Mosley have came back today in this game? Probably. I mean, he's healthy enough. They didn't put him on the pup list. But that 13-day window before their next game is huge, and I think both coaches are going to use that to their advantage. Now, players are not going to see on the injury report because they're suspended or they're in a contract dispute. Obviously, for the Detroit Lions, you have Jameson Williams, who will be out. He's out for the first 6 games. And for Kansas City, Charles Omenihu, the defensive end, it's a really good defensive end. He's going to be suspended the first 6 games. And then obviously we have Chris Jones, the defensive tackle from the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you know how good Chris Jones is. And all throughout the time that you get these tweet notifications or X notifications from Tom Pelissero, Adam Schefter, any of the NFL insiders, and they're talking about Chris Jones, you're like, is he playing or is he not playing? Now, if he did sign a contract tomorrow, he could potentially play. Is he going to be in game shape? That'll be the question I'm really trying to answer, because I don't think he will be in game shape. And if I was the Chiefs, I would try to get him on the field as fast as I can, because when you look at the defensive line, you got Danny Shelton, you got a rookie, and then you got some guy that you just traded for. There's not really much on the defensive line besides George Karlaftis. And when you look at the stats that matter, the Lions ranked top 5 in percentage of rushes up the middle and yards per rush up the middle last year, making Chris Jones a potential absence especially painful in week 1. The Chiefs defense is bottom 5 in pressure percentage over the last 5 seasons when Chris Jones is not on the field. It's a very big part of the game. A lot of people are going to gloss over it. Chris Jones is one of the best defensive tackles in the sport. I would put him right up there with Aaron Donald. It's him and Aaron Donald. Those are 2 guys that I would pay a lot of money for to become the defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions. And if you're a Chiefs fan, you know that you would pay a lot of money to get Chris Jones back on that field, because he is one of your best players on that defense. He is a huge impact on that defense. The stats play it out that you're better at pressure percentage when he's on the field compared to when he's not on the field. When Goff has a clean pocket. So we just talked about Chris Jones potentially missing tomorrow's game. With Goff having a clean pocket, 3,600 yards, 24 TDs, 3 interceptions. When Goff has a clean pocket, he is a better quarterback. Having no Chris Jones, that really sets it up for Goff to have a pretty damn good game. Am I worried about Patrick Mahomes? Yes, I absolutely am worried about Patrick Mahomes, because in week 1, he is undefeated, 18 touchdowns, 5,542 yards, no picks. But when you look at the week 1 teams that he has gone against, look at them. Besides 2018 against the Chargers, every team has been absolute dog crap. Is the Detroit Lions dog crap? No, I don't think so. But if you look at the last 4 teams, I mean, obviously you're going to pad the stats against Jacksonville, Houston, and Cleveland, and Arizona. I mean, all those teams were in the top of the draft order. And, there's there's nothing saying anything bad about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. We all know that. But when you look at those stats, it could be deceiving, because the 4 teams that he has played have been absolute crappy teams. And obviously Patrick Mahomes is going to take advantage of crappy teams. And as a Lions fan, you're hoping that you're not that crappy team. You're hoping that you're with the offseason's addition of Cameron Sutton, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, who's not going to play in this game. You're hoping that you can get what you expected. When you look at those guys that they added to the secondary, Cameron Sutton, 3 interceptions last year, completion percentage allowed of 47.9, yak yardage allowed 118. He gets tackles at the point of attack. You look at Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a complete playmaker, 6 interceptions, obviously completion percentage was 73.1%. Yak yardage allowed was 123. Emmanuel Mosley will not play in this game, but you look at his last season where he played pretty much a full season. It was pretty damn good too. This is what we talk about with the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. There's going to be a lot of mismatches to kind of exploit. So what mismatches am I looking at for the Detroit Lions perspective against the Kansas City Chiefs? Let's look at the key matchups. So the key matchups is Joe. This is my pick for. I had Tyler yesterday. He picked. If you go back to it, he goes. Tyler picked the Lions offensive line, defense line. St. Brown versus Snead or McDuffie. Today I picked something different. I picked Gibbs versus whoever will cover him. Aiden Hutchinson versus Chiefs tackles. Lions offensive line versus Chiefs defensive line. Now let me break this down for you in a little good clip. Gibbs, whoever's guarding Gibbs, he's going to have the mismatch against. He's going to have a mismatch against a linebacker. He's going to have a mismatch against a safety. He's going to have a mismatch against a corner. So whoever is going to be a mismatch for JAHMYR Gibbs, and how is Ben Johnson going to deploy him? That's going to be the major question that I have for the Detroit Lions. Now, if you look at the Lions offensive line versus Chiefs defensive line, obviously if there is no Chris Jones, this could be a better matchup for the Detroit Lions because obviously we know the Detroit Lions offensive line is a top 5 offensive line with no Chris Jones, with no Amenu, with just a George Karlaftis. The Chiefs defensive line isn't that great, guys. So the Lions offensive line can really push their weight on the Chiefs defensive line and kind of power it through. And if they control the clock and they start running, getting the run game going, it could be a long day for the Kansas City Chiefs because the main thing that you want to look at with Kansas City is you want to take the ball away from them. You want to make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have a lot of time on the field. This is a game, go back and look at the Tennessee Titans, okay? Whenever they played the Kansas City Chiefs, especially last time they played the Kansas City Chiefs, so I think it was like 2017 game, they had Malik Willis at quarterback, okay? They just played time of possession. They tried to run the clock out, and they tried to do a pretty damn good job. Did they do it? No. But they still did a pretty good job of it. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, there's a lot of things that they have new, especially at the offensive tackle position. You have Donovan Smith. Let's go back to it. You have Donovan Smith against Aiden Hutchinson, maybe Charles Harris, maybe James Houston, maybe Josh Pascal. Donovan Smith was one of the most penalized tackles in football last year. So that's something to weigh in your conscience. Obviously, Jawan Taylor coming from Jacksonville to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's in a new system. He's going up against a good defensive ends, a deep edge unit. How do they go against it? And how can Detroit get pressure on Patrick Mahomes? We all know Patrick Mahomes can evade the pocket. We all know that. When Patrick Mahomes can get out of the pocket, he's a dangerous player. But when you can pressure a quarterback and make him throw a ball when he doesn't want to throw it, that'll help Detroit out more than anything. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the players to watch, in my opinion, I have JAHMYR Gibbs. I have RASHEE Rice. Now, if you've never heard of these guys, they are both rookies. RASHEE Rice from SMU, JAHMYR Gibbs from the University of Alabama. You look at Rice. Let's go look at Rice. He started all 12 games last year. Led the FBS in receiving yards per game with 112.9. His receiving yards were 1,300 yards, which was third in the nation. 8 receptions per game, which was 5th in the nation. Was 13th nationally with 10 receiving touchdowns posted. 6 100-yard games. Had 3 multi-TD games. Registered a career high 193 yards against at Maryland. This is a guy I kind of worry about because I feel like this is a guy who can potentially get open a lot. I think that when Patrick Mahomes develops a chemistry with Rice, this could be a potentially deadly combo because I think Rice has the speed. He has the he just has the ability to get open and make plays in the deep threat zone. One of the things that the Kansas City Chiefs have missed with no Tyreek Hill is a guy who can get open deep. Obviously, Valdez-Scantling's that guy. They hope Sky Moore is that guy. But I really like RASHEE Rice. I think when he develops a chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, he's going to be a very, very tough guy to beat. And if you're a fantasy football fan, you might want to put this guy as a player to watch and kind of see how he's doing throughout the season and maybe stash him as a guy on your fantasy team. Now, when we looked at JAHMYR GIBBS, obviously, if you didn't follow JAHMYR GIBBS in college, he went to Alabama, transferred from Georgia Tech. He was third team All-American by the Associated Press in the all-purpose slot. He averaged 6.1 cards carried to rank third in the SEC and 20th among Division I running backs. Totaled a team high 926 rushing yards, good for 7th in the SEC, while adding 7 touchdowns on his team high 151 carries. Led the Tide with 44 receptions and 444 yards, and 3 scores. Also returned 13 kickoffs for 258 yards. Now, we all know JAHMYR GIBBS, okay? It's going to be interesting to see how Ben Johnson uses him in the offense, because Dave Montgomery is that guy that's probably going to be rushing the ball a lot. But how do they deploy JAHMYR GIBBS? Are they going to deploy him in the slot? Are they going to deploy him in the backfield with Dave Montgomery and JAHMYR GIBBS in the backfield and kind of that split tandem? It'll be very interesting to see what they do with JAHMYR GIBBS, because he is a guy who could potentially be a game breaker. And I think that if you're a Detroit Lions fan, he's a very good player to watch tomorrow. I am starting him in fantasy for a reason. I think he's going to be a big player tomorrow for the Detroit Lions. Now, if you look at Mahomes in week 1, we all know the numbers. He's undefeated in week 1. But if you look at those teams, besides the 2018 LA Chargers, who are you really fearing? Who is a team that that Patrick Mahomes shouldn't just destroy? Is it Jacksonville? No. Is it Houston? No. Is it Cleveland? No. Is it Arizona? No. He should have 1,500 yards and 18 touchdowns and no picks. That Chargers game, that was a pretty good game. But you look at the last 4 years, I mean, they played absolutely dog crap teams in week 1. I mean, stats can be deceiving a little bit when you talk about week 1 Mahomes. Look at those teams that he's played. Are you scared of any of those teams? No. And if you're a Detroit Lions fan, hopefully you aren't one of those teams that you go, man, we just added to a statistic of being another bad team that he beat up on. That's not going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what Patrick Mahomes does against a good defense, because this is a defense that can pressure you. This is a defense that can get to the quarterback. They have some talent in the secondary. They have some talent at cornerback. They can stop the run. I expect a better Detroit Lions defense than we've seen last year. And obviously, after that 1-6 start, they really turned it on. They were a top 20 defense with the additions that they made of Brian Branch, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You can see this defense going pretty damn good. Look at this. Cameron Sutton, 3 interceptions last year. Completion percentage allowed of 47.9. Yak allowed was 118. Obviously, that's key, because when you play the Kansas City Chiefs, a lot of times what they really rely on is the yak yardage. The yak yardage. The yak yardage. You're going to try to stop that. Obviously, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 6 interceptions. He's a playmaker, a ball hawk. Completion percentage is a little bit high, but he takes more chances than Cameron Sutton. Obviously, you are looking at that. When we go look back to last year, Jerry Jacobs, a guy who was going to probably be a key player tomorrow. He was one of the best players at quarterback rating again. So was Kirby Joseph. Alex Anzalone was on there. All those guys that you see at the top, besides Will Harris, they're no longer with the team. So when you look at it, the Detroit defense did get better, and the Detroit Lions defense can make Patrick Mahomes a little bit uncomfortable, especially with the defensive ends that they have coming back. Now, let's go to my parlay. Okay. Let's go to the keys for the Detroit Lions to win. Get the ground game going. A lot of times what people they don't understand, especially with the way that football is played now, they think that they have to go in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. And I'm here to tell you that if you're going to go in a shootout with Patrick Mahomes, you probably will lose, especially at Arrowhead. Okay. I don't care if there's no Travis Kelce. I don't care about any of that. When you can get the ground game going, you can burn the clock, you can win time of possession, you limit Mahomes on how many times he's on the field. That's huge for Kansas City. That's huge for Detroit, because Kansas City is not getting as many possessions as they once thought they were, and the Lions are spending more time on the field on the offensive end, and then hopefully you're getting points out of those drives that you sustain with the time of possession. So get the ground game going. You can win some games. Look, Dave Montgomery, JAHMYR, GIBBS, there's a lot of great talent on this team. They should be able to run the ball, especially against this defensive line that doesn't. But right now we know doesn't have Chris Jones. It could change tomorrow, obviously, after I do this video. 2 is pressure Mahomes. This seems like kind of a conjecture opinion, but you got to pressure Mahomes because one of the things that Mahomes does really, really well, he's a fantastic quarterback getting out of the pocket, making plays with his feet, doing things like that. But if you pressure him and make him throw a pass before he really wants to throw it, before there's a guy open, it could really open up a spot for Detroit to make him pay. And obviously, he hasn't thrown an interception in week 1. We all know that, and we've seen the teams that he played against. This could be the week. I mean, you have Kirby Joseph back there. You have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's a lot of chances for the Kansas City Chiefs to kind of be put in a difficult position, especially with Patrick Mahomes being pressured. Let's go back to it. No turnovers. 1 and 3 are tied together, okay? 1 and 3 are tied together. If you're a Lions fan, you got to get the ground game going, but you can't give the Kansas City Chiefs any extra possessions. Period. End of story. No extra possessions. You can't give them any extra possessions because they will make you pay. They're a great team. Obviously, we know that they're going to make some things happen with the way that they play. You can't give them any extra possessions. If I'm Detroit, you have to do that. You have to make sure that you don't give them any extra possessions because if you give them extra possessions, it could be very, very bad for you. Now, I'm going to get to my parlay of the day. I think this is the most interesting parlay I put together. I'll put the link in the comments for my code that you can use. If you bet 50, you get some. You're gonna get a deposit bonus. But this is plus 1,300. Amon-Ra St. Brown, anytime touchdown. Detroit Lions cover the 5.5 point spread. Jared Goff over 1.5 touchdowns. Over 51.5 alternative total points. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than most people think. I think the total right now is at 52.5, so it's a point under. Over 23.5 Lions total points. I think this is going to be a 25, 28, 25, 31, 30, 20. It's going to be a high scoring game, in my opinion. And I think JAHMYR GIBBS is going to get an anytime touchdown. Obviously, when we talk about the Detroit Lions and we talk about this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a team in Kansas City who is just very, very good. We all know that. But they're missing guys like Chris Jones. They're missing guys like Travis Kelce, potentially. We don't know what's going to happen. He's a game-time decision tomorrow. It'll be interesting to hear what happens tomorrow leading up to the game and if he will play, if Chris Jones will play, because everything can change in a minute. We know that for sure. But I look at this game, and I think that this could be a very fun game for both teams. And I think that both teams are going to start it off with a good team on the other side that they can learn off of. Obviously, if you're Andy Reid, you're going to learn off some things that you learned from this game. If you're Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, you're going to learn from playing Spagnuolo, playing Andy Reid. Aaron Glenn's going to learn some stuff on the Lions defensive side. This is a good chance for both teams to get some good work in. And obviously, week 1 in prime time, this is a good chance for everybody to get a good look at the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs in week 1. I really do think the Detroit Lions are a good team. And obviously, we know the Kansas City Chiefs are a good team. So it's going to be a fun game to watch tomorrow in prime time on NBC. And you can watch that game on NBC or Peacock. Now, if you like this video, you can subscribe to the channel. If you're a Lions fan, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate every subscription I get. I value all my subscribers. I'm trying to grow the channel. I have a good base. We have Detroit content, Detroit sports content all the time. So stay tuned to that. We will see you in the next video. I might do something after the game. I'm not sure yet, but I might do that. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe. You'll get the notification when I do my next video. And I will see you in the next video I do. Hopefully it's a Lions win at the end. But have a good one, guys.